Trips to the Isle of Skye are always unforgettable. No matter what the weather, the beauty of this island always shines through. This trip I was off to a part of Skye that I have never ventured to before, and before I even arrived I knew this weekend was going to be a trip that I would remember for a long time to come.
Welcome to Eilean Lighthouse, situated just off the Sleat Peninsula in the southwest of Skye on a little island known as Eilean Sionnach. Now I'm sure that any of you who have been to this part of Skye will have seen this lighthouse from the mainland and possibly even photographed it too, but I bet you didn't know that you can actually stay on this island in the renovated former lighthouse keeper cottages that reside here. This is the Eilean Sionnach Lighthouse Cottage. It was once two cottages lived in by the lighthouse keeper and his assistant, but it's since been converted into one cottage and is now a holiday let. Now this island is very remote. It's actually a tidal island, which means you can only access it via boat or at very low tide by foot, but you've got a very narrow window to get on and off again. This means that this island is the perfect place to come to relax, unwind and get away from it all. And as a photographer, I find that this island is really inspiring me. It's very small, I've not got much room to explore and much room to create different compositions, but the beautiful lighthouse and the hills around me and the scenery are just stunning. And my plan for this weekend is to try and get as many photographs on this island as I can. Of course, tick the lighthouse off of my lighthouse photography bucket list, but most importantly, just enjoy the tranquility here and the remoteness and really immerse myself in nature and the beautiful wildlife that surrounds this island. I've been fascinated about the life of lighthouse keepers for a long time now, and yeah, I've sort of spoken about this in other videos, but lighthouses to me mean a lot. They symbolise the coast, they symbolise safety, and to me they're like a beacon of hope flashing out over the water at night. But one thing I've never done is stayed in an ex-lighthouse cottage. The lighthouse cottage is used by the lighthouse keepers back in the day, and there's actually quite a lot of self-catering accommodation and holiday lets around Scotland who have renovated these old lighthouse cottages to make them into holiday homes and holiday lets, and it's something that I've always wanted to do for many years. Being out here tonight, we're going to be completely remote. It's just going to be me and my friend Sophie in this lighthouse cottage on this island for the whole weekend, just by ourselves, and really feeling the force of nature and the remoteness that those lighthouse keepers probably would have felt back in the day, and really immersing ourselves, I guess, in their world. But I think what's so fascinating here and so beautiful here is the diversity around the island, the beautiful landscapes, the hills, the mountains, the wildlife that surround this cottage and this beautiful island, and this real sense of isolation, but also peace and tranquility. And that's something that we really struggle to find in the modern day, but where places like this can allow you to feel that and immerse yourself in a new world, sort of switched off from the hustle and bustle of daily life. Now, it goes without saying that Scotland is an incredibly inspiring country. I mean, of course it is. There's so many artists around here, so many novelists, poets, photographers, all these different creative realms. You know, they find so much inspiration from Scotland. And although I will always be an East Coast girl in many ways, it's where I was brought up, it's where my home is, I'd love to come to the West Coast at least once a year. And I mean, you can see why. It's very rugged, it's very remote, you've got beautiful mountains, the iconic Scottish mountains all around you. And it really gives you a sense of almost isolation and tranquility, which you don't often get in other parts of the world these days. And it is so nice. But to be gifted the chance to come and spend a weekend on this island is amazing. Now, this isn't the first time that I've stayed on a remote island. I actually did it once when I stayed on Hansa Island a few years ago when I did voluntary work, and I love the isolation that you get from being on these islands. The little day-to-day quirks that we take, or day-to-day home comforts that we take for granted, aren't always possible to be achieved and be enjoyed in places like this. But it really allows you to immerse yourself in nature and be inspired by the natural world around you. And all islands like this, I find, come with some sort of folklore or come with inspiring stories. And this island was actually where a novel, a best-selling novel, was written, and that is a novel called The Ice Twins. It's a thriller that was written in the cottage that I'm staying at this weekend about this island, and about a quarter of the way through it. As it's a thriller and it's quite spooky, I'm a little bit reluctant to read any more or finish it while I'm on this island, because I don't want to spook myself out while I'm here at night with this sort of thriller stories going on. But you know, there's a lot of that stuff on the west coast of Scotland. I think the isolation, the wild weather has inspired so many people to get creative and to think outside the box and do something like this. So, you know, obviously I'm a photographer, and you can see quite easily why the west coast is so inspiring for photography, but you can also see why its mystery and its atmosphere and its wild weather, remoteness and the ruggedness of the landscape can inspire stories like this. And this is what I love about Scotland, and it's also something that I'm hoping to portray more in my channel this year, is the amount of creativity and the amount of creative and artistic genres that this country inspires. It's just incredible. And to be gifted a weekend here in this gorgeous scenery, I just feel so privileged. It's so beautiful. As I'm sure many of you are aware, my photography work is heavily inspired by the Scottish coast, and that's just one of the many reasons why I'm embarking on this lighthouse photography quest. But one thing I've always wondered really is what it's like to stay in a lighthouse cottage. Now, I've been to the Scottish Lighthouse Museum in Fraserburgh, where you do get a tour of an old lighthouse cottage and you get sort of the feel of what it's like to have been there as a lighthouse keeper many, many years ago. But to be able to actually come and stay in a former lighthouse cottage and really immerse yourself in these elements silence and the beautiful views and the isolation that these men must have felt, it really gives you a sense of life back in, you know, the lighthouse keeper days, and the sort of isolation that they felt, and also the harsh conditions that they must have had to work in. I mean, it's so beautiful out here. It's so beautiful, and to be able to come out here on a holiday or for a long weekend like I'm doing and just step back from day-to-day life and enjoy it, it's amazing. But to be able to actually work here all the time and be around this landscape and this changing weather all the time, it must have been quite a harsh place to live in, a harsh environment. And one of the things I love about this cottage especially is the fact that although it's got a lot of modern day touches in it and a lot of you know, what do you call it, home comforts, there's also quite a lot of ruggedness about this cottage. There's a lot of things in it that are originals. You know, there's old stone flooring and floorboards and sort of I imagine, original wooden doors. So it's got a very rustic feel to it with modern touches, and it's great. So before I sign off this video and before I go out and do all my photography, I'm going to give you a quick tour of this cottage just to show you what it's like and hopefully give you a sense of maybe what it was like back in the day for these lighthouse keepers. And it's definitely an experience coming out here because you've got to get the boat out and in, you come in and out in all different weather conditions, you can feel 4 seasons in one day. But it's an experience I think that will be very memorable for anyone who comes here, and it really allows you to get away from that hustle and bustle of daily life and just immerse yourself in the natural world and the ruggedness of the west coast of Scotland. I don't think that you can say that you've ever truly experienced Scotland until you come to a remote island like this and experience it in all weathers. When it's beautiful and sunny, it is tranquil. It's almost like being in paradise. And then on days like today, which is our last day here, day 2, should I say, day 2, for it to be bucketing down with rain as it is, and for all these misty, mysterious clouds coming in over the horizon. This is what the west coast of Scotland is famous for, and this in many ways is so beautiful and awe-inspiring. And if you wanted to be in the house cooped up in the lovely warmth, then it's great, but you have to get out, get your waterproofs on, get out and enjoy it in weather like this, because this is where you can really feel alive, where you really feel the forces of nature, feel the cold rain on your skin. It's just incredible. Isle of Skye never disappoints, and coming and finding hidden gems like this I've never been to before makes this island even more special.